For more, we're joined by Anas Iqtait, Senior Lecturer at the Australian National University. Dr. Iqtait, thanks for your time today. Now, given the frequency of journalists, ending up as casualties, more than 200 killed since the war in Gaza began. I mean, can these strikes still be seen as an isolated incident, or do they suggest a pattern? And what is the strategic impact of so many Palestinian journalists being killed?
Well, I think it's part and parcel of the general approach that the Israeli authorities have taken towards the Palestinians in the Gaza Strip over the past few years, which is complete disregard to Palestinians at large. The entire civilian infrastructure that has been destroyed and decimated across the Gaza Strip is a testimony to that. The number of journalists that have been killed is another testimony to that. The number of medical workers in Gaza that have also been killed is another evidence that there is a policy that looks at the Palestinians at large in Gaza as targets, or looks at them with complete disregard to their individual rights to live in freedom in their own land. So this is the policy that has shaped Israel's approach towards the Palestinians and Gaza. And as a result, we obviously see this large number of Palestinian journalists being killed.
But Dr. Iqtait, I want to ask you whether or not Israel has taken this to a new level, because there are reports that say this was a double attack, meaning first responders were targeted in a second attack as they rushed in to help. So has Israel taken this to another level of, there are no other words I can think of apart from horror and shock?
In recent months, we have seen the Israeli government take even a more violent or more aggressive stand against the Palestinians at large. Again, so my analysis of this specific incident is that it's not an isolated incident. It's an incident that kind of reinforces Israel's behavior in the Strip over the past 2 months, but more particularly since March and April of this year, where Israel has moved towards the final stage of its war in Gaza. And it's most likely what will happen during this final stage is the concentration of Palestinians in one area and the utter destruction of the entire Gaza Strip, as we are seeing right now, beginning at the outskirts of Gaza City itself, once the largest city of Palestinians with a population of about 1 million people.
Dr. Iqtait, how likely are the latest strikes on the Nasser hospital and journalists, how likely is that to be viewed as violations of international humanitarian law, even as Israel claims that it was a tragic mishap? I mean, there was clear footage of this second strike hitting rescuers and journalists. And bearing in mind, this incident comes just weeks after 6 journalists were killed near the Al-Shifa hospital.
Yes, and to build on that, Israel is at the International Criminal Court for grave violations of international law. So whether this incident itself qualifies as a war crime or not, this is a technical term that will have to be investigated and looked into, and this incident will have to be investigated. But the entire world saw the attack, a double tap strike, what appeared to be a double tap attack against a hospital building in Gaza. And again, as I mentioned earlier, in my opinion, this is not an isolated incident. It's part of a wider stance against the Palestinians in Gaza, or what's left of the Palestinians in Gaza. And Israel's behavior is under scrutiny right now by the media, but it has legally been under scrutiny for many months before the International Criminal Court, where there is a case there that is being looked into. And let's not forget that the head of the state in Israel, the prime minister, has an arrest warrant issued by the ICC for him for violations of international law.
Dr. Iqtait, while all this is happening, we know that a famine's been declared in Gaza. The first time the IPC has, made such a declaration in the Middle East. So I'm wondering, has that declaration made any difference to your knowledge? Is more aid being allowed into the Strip to alleviate the ongoing hunger and starvation?
Well, as of now, the conditions of hunger continue. And as the report highlighted, about 500,000 people risk being in a status of famine, while mass starvation applies to the rest of the population. This cannot be improved given the ongoing military operation in Gaza City and the Israeli rhetoric about removing the Palestinians, or in other words, ethnically cleansing the Palestinians from Gaza City towards a concentration camp in the south. So this starvation effort, if you will, you can look at it as a policy, perhaps, towards concentrating the Palestinians in the southern parts of the Gaza Strip. An interesting detail, or an important detail in the report by the United Nations body on famine in Gaza, indicated that the vast majority of those that lived under these conditions lived in Gaza City itself, which again ties into the military operation that we are seeing in Gaza at the moment.
Dr. Iqtait, I want to ask you a little bit more about that effort to relocate residents to the southern parts of Gaza, presumably to places like Deir al-Balah, to Han Yunis. Do these places actually have the capacity to absorb, all the residents if they move from Gaza City south?
Well, absolutely not. First off, the Gaza Strip is an extremely tiny strip of land. 2+ million people live in about 350 square kilometers. 75% of this 350 square kilometers are under direct control of the Israeli military, or they have evacuation orders in place. What we are talking about is pushing the entire population of Gaza, if the operation in Gaza City indeed continues and Israel manages to displace the entire population from there to the southern parts. We are talking about pushing this entire population of 2+ million people into an area that is about 10 to 15% at best of the 350 square kilometers. So we are talking about 2 million people in 35 square kilometers. Again, this is not a condition that is humane for these 2 million people to live in. It's the best way to describe this location that Israel is trying to push the Palestinians to is a concentration camp. Where food is tightly going to be controlled, water supplies are going to be tightly controlled, and the security situation obviously will also be tightly controlled by Israel. So this is not a condition that should be looked at lightly. It's not a condition that the international community should also accept as going forward as a new stage or as the new stage of this war in Gaza.
Dr. Iqtait, on Israel's part, it has said that all this will end if Hamas gives back the hostages. When we talk about the starvation issue, Israel's also pointed out that its hostages are also being starved. I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, my thoughts are going are building on the rhetoric that has come from the Israeli government and also statements made by individual Israeli ministers. The goal in Gaza is beyond Hamas. The goal in Gaza is complete security control over the Gaza Strip, and potentially the ethnic cleansing, if Israel gets its way, the ethnic cleansing of the Gaza Strip and complete Israeli sovereignty over that Gaza Strip, over the Strip itself. And this is in line of recent comments made by Benjamin Netanyahu only last week about him believing in the vision of Greater Israel, which puts firmly the Gaza Strip, obviously, in that vision. So in my opinion, the Israeli vision in Gaza extends much beyond the technical aspects of this war with regards to Hamas and the Israeli captives there.
All right. Appreciate your time today. Anas Iqtait, a senior lecturer at the Australian National University.